Chapter 1 Nightmare. Have you ever woken up from one nightmare and found yourself in another nightmare? Lu Sheng is now. Lu Sheng. The stern voice exploded in my ears like thunder. Lu Sheng looked up dizzily, the daze and helplessness that just woke up from sleep still remained on his face. The middle-aged man on the podium pushed his glasses on the bridge of his nose, and stared at him with a look of hatred. There are more than 200 days left before the college entrance examination. Don't want to work hard, and still have the mind to sleep in class? With your grades, after graduation, you may not be able to go to the construction site to move bricks. Do you know what is the minimum blood standard for cement workers on the construction site? 0.8. Has your qi and blood reached 0.8? Lu Sheng lowered his head. While rubbing his swollen temples, he obediently listened to what the head teacher said. The little fat man sitting on his left secretly turned to look at him. Are you having nightmares again? Lu Sheng nodded without speaking, but his eyes were full of helplessness. He has been dreaming the same dream repeatedly and frequently for 3 days. Lu Sheng couldn't describe what kind of dream it was. He just remembered that the scene in the dream was very dilapidated, desolate and depressing. He stood at a loss in a wilderness, surrounded by wandering monsters. Is a nightmare. Lu Sheng is very sure of this. Because after encountering this dream, he became very lethargic, and the quality of sleep was extremely poor. Although I sleep for more than 10 hours a day, the state of the whole person is the same as continuous insomnia all night. So much so that in these 3 days, Lu Sheng's blood value dropped by 0.02. 0.02 ah. How many tonics do you need to take, and how many days of hard work can you make up for it? Lu Sheng's mood was simply terrible. After school, Lu Sheng walked listlessly on the way out of the school with his schoolbag on his back. Someone called his name and chased after him, blocking him. Lu Sheng, go online? It's the little fat guy in class during the day. His name is Lu Qiming, and he is one of Lu Sheng's few friends. Facing Lu Qiming's invitation, Lu Sheng shook his head. No, go home. Going home so early? It's not like your style. Go online, I'll cover all the drinks and internet fees today. Lu Qiming patted his chest and sincerely invited. Lu Sheng still shook his head and explained, I really don't want to go. I want to go back early to catch up on sleep. You slept all day in class today, and you haven't woken up yet? Lu Qiming had an exaggerated expression on his face. Lu Sheng didn't bother to explain. He waved his hand and continued walking. Lu Qiming wanted to persuade him again, but at this time a few boys ran over quickly. Lu Qiming, are you going to surf the internet? Come on, right now. Lu Qiming took one last look at Lu Sheng, said nothing, left Lu Sheng and ran towards the other boys. Lu Sheng watched Lu Qiming's back as he went away, and students in black and blue school uniforms kept passing by him. These people rushed to the school gate in a bustling manner, and quickly scattered away at the school gate, like a muddy river, going away amidst the bustle. Why? Lu Sheng sighed softly, and the thoughts in his mind began to surge. He almost forgot that he had lived in this world for nearly 18 years. Lu Sheng's memory of his previous life is very vague now, and sometimes he even wonders if it was just a dream. It was a dream that he would recur from childhood to adulthood. Like the one he's been dreaming about lately. No house, no car, single, white collar, walking, falling off a cliff, waking up. Lu Sheng muttered one key word after another in a low voice, and his eyes gradually became distant until he read the last word. Through. Yes, Lu Sheng came from time travel. In the world of his previous life, there was no martial arts, and there were no monsters running out of cracks in the ground. What is broadcast on the TV news is not monster attacks and martial arts duels. The headaches for the students in the school are not the blood value, combat effectiveness index, and actual combat class results, but the endless mathematics, physics, chemistry, and foreign language test papers. Sometimes Lu Sheng quite misses that world, because that world at least peaceful, quiet. Lu Sheng pushed open the door. He saw his father Lu Haihai lying on the armrest of the sofa with his upper body bare, and his mother Zheng Yufan was tearing off a piece of plaster to find a suitable spot on Lu Haihai's back. Lu Sheng noticed his father's patched back, his eyes hurt, and he shouted, "I'm back. Are you hungry? Why don't you eat an apple first, and I'll cook right away?" Zheng Yufan said to Lu Dahai while pressing the plaster on Lu Dahai's body. Lu Sheng shook his head, dragged his school bag and walked towards his room. He stopped halfway, turned his head to the sofa and said in a low voice, "Why don't you go back and buy a blood moxibustion instrument? That thing can stimulate qi and blood, relax tendons, and is also very effective for massage and healing. My classmate's family has one." "Hey, what kind of injury is it for me?" "Just bear it for a few days and it will be fine. If you have this money, you might as well save it and buy supplements for you." Lu Dahai quickly rejected Lu Sheng's proposal, and then tried to turn his head to look at him. "How is your qi and blood value recently? Have you broken through 0.85? I read the news today that the qi and blood value of this year's undergraduate scoreline for the college entrance examination has been raised by 0.01. "I see, I'm going back to my room to exercise now." When Lu Sheng heard this, his heart tightened, and he rushed into his room as if fleeing. He couldn't do it with a guilty conscience. If Lu Dahai knew that his blood value had not improved, but dropped instead, he would have to jump up from the sofa and beat him hard with a shoe board. Chapter 2 Victory Team Zombies? Lu Sheng closed the door and breathed a sigh of relief. Only when he was in this small room that belonged to him alone did he feel a little relaxed. The room is small, with a single bed and desk in the corner. In the middle is a 2 by 1.5 black yoga mat, surrounded by dumbbells, grips, sandbags and other exercise equipment. This is Lu Sheng's martial arts training room and rest room. Lu Sheng put down his school bag, took off his coat and pants, and sat down on the yoga mat. He came back immediately after school. In fact, he mainly wanted to exercise more, so as to make up for the decline in qi and blood value due to nightmares in the past 2 days as soon as possible. At his age, all aspects of his body are developing rapidly, and it should be the stage when his blood value is skyrocketing. Unless it is an injury or a serious illness, it is almost impossible for the blood value to drop. So what happened to Lu Sheng can be regarded as very serious, and it must be corrected and contained in time. After calming down, Lu Sheng took a deep breath and said silently in his heart, "The 13th radio gymnastics, start." Afterwards, Lu Sheng's body began to move one after another. These movements are somewhat similar to yoga, but they are very different from yoga. It is quite appropriate to use gymnastics to describe them. The 24 forms of martial arts body training promoted by the World Martial Arts League are said to be created by the masters of the Martial Arts League based on ancient yoga, ancient martial arts, and ancient jiu-jitsu. They are most suitable for laying the foundation for martial arts beginners. But the version I am practicing now is already the 13th version after revision and correction, and the effect is several times better than the first version of the first generation. Since more than 300 years ago, the world underwent drastic changes, a crack appeared in the sky and the earth, and a large number of grotesque and terrifying monsters spewed out. The development track of this world has completely changed. After most of the thermal weapons lost their effectiveness against monsters, humans began to look for new ways and means to defend themselves. Perhaps because of the appearance of monsters, facing the tremendous pressure of genocide, a certain gene lock in the human body is broken, and individual strength can easily climb to a height that was unimaginable before. So martial arts began to shine. Martial arts develop rapidly and change with each passing day. It has been developed until now, and it has become a social trend for the whole people to practice martial arts and practice hard. But even so, humans are still at an absolute disadvantage on the battlefield of competing with monsters for living space. There are news of towns falling almost every day, and the human population continues to drop sharply. this is what the head teacher often told Lu Sheng and the others. You were born in a turbulent era, and you must shoulder the responsibilities of this era. You are practicing martial arts for the rise of mankind, each of you is the fire of martial arts. Lu Sheng stopped his physical movements, sat on the yoga mat and slowly adjusted his breathing. He did the 24 movements of body training 3 times in one breath. A thin layer of sweat broke out on his body, and his originally pale face became a little more flushed. If you don't have nightmares anymore, you should be able to make up for the lack of blood in a week. Lu Sheng thought silently in his heart. So far, Lu Sheng has not found the reason for his nightmare. He checked the information on the internet with his mobile phone, and there are generally 4 causes of nightmares: sleeping position, diet, disease, and spirit. The first 3 factors can be ruled out. Is it possible that it is caused by the high psychological pressure near the college entrance examination? Lu Sheng could not confirm. It stands to reason that a person like him who has gone through 2 college entrance examinations should have a much better psychological endurance than normal people. Not so. Lu Sheng was resting while thinking wildly. Thinking about it, sleepiness slowly came up like a tide. Lu Sheng yawned unconsciously, his eyelids drooped, his body slowly lay down, and he gradually fell asleep. The sky is leaden gray, the earth is black, and there is a trace of gray mist everywhere. Depressed, desperate, desolate. When Lu Sheng woke up, the first thing he saw was the scene in front of him. It's this nightmare again. Lu Sheng was completely helpless. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Lu Sheng grabbed the flesh on his arms and face, trying to wake himself up from the dream, but it was of no avail. Until a certain point in time, he will remain in this nightmare. There was a strange sound in my ear, as if someone was stuck in the throat, accompanied by rustling mopping. Coming. Lu Sheng wailed in his heart. Soon, the gray fog not far to his left dissipated, and a tall, stiff figure appeared in front of his eyes. The skin color of the humanoid is gray, the eye sockets are sunken and there are no eyeballs, only a pair of holes. There is a long gap in the face, and the gray-white face bones and black flesh and blood can be clearly seen. The figure is stiff and slow, wearing a onesie that resembles the victory uniform, but is already dirty, with dirt everywhere. It was almost exactly the same as the zombies Lu Sheng had seen in the movies of his previous life.